Ladies and gentlemen, here we are with another Mighty Game Review. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you, I have a review of the early access version of Gunner Heat PC. Finally, it has happened. It has come to Steam, folks. Now, there's going to be a bit of a disclaimer here first with this video before I really roll into the review itself and start giving you my thoughts about Gunner Heat PC. First thing is I've been covering Gunner Heat PC for a long time now. I am one of the community contributors, creators, if you will, for Gunner Heat PC, and I have had access to the Patreon build of Gunner Heat PC for a long time, and you can definitely tell if you go back and look at my Gunner Heat PC videos that I've done. That being said, I have also given some advice, not a whole lot, but some advice on both the M1 Abrams and the Bradley. So I do kind of have some development ties, not really that much though, for Gunner Heat PC. And the last thing is I am credited as one of the voice actors for Gunner Heat PC. I am the loader for the American Tank Crews, is my contribution to Gunner Heat PC itself. That being said, that is not going to sway my opinion about how I feel about Gunner Heat PC currently as a whole for Steam. And that being said, this is not the Patreon build. This is a review of the Steam early access build that I paid for out of my own money. I was not asked to do this review. I am doing this review on my own accord as a YouTuber, as I just do review videos. Okay? So, this has nothing to do with Action Scripter, has nothing to do with the development team, but I do want to be transparent on, I do have ties in certain ways to Gunner Heat PC, but I'm going to be honest with you because I've always been honest with my fans and with my viewer base, no matter if I was paid to do the review or not, which there is reviews in the past that I was sponsored to do. And, well, those reviews didn't turn out well for those developers. But let's dive on in here to Gunner Heat PC. The developer and publisher is Radian Simulations LLC. And essentially, it is a really, really small development team that is attached to Gunner Heat PC, and there's a lot of different people that's given different contributions in different ways to Gunner Heat PC. Like when it comes to the vehicle, the information for the vehicles, it was a combination of official documents and actually veteran tank crews. That's actually kind of where I came in with my little contributions to Gunner Heat PC, as I did provide some advice and some information on the M1 Abrams in the game, as well as actually I gave some advice and information on the Bradley, because I still have a buddy that's in the service and he is a Bradley commander. So they've taken information from people who have actually served on these vehicles. They're not just going by the paper. They're actually talking to veteran tankers and vehicle crewmen. The release was literally yesterday, the day I'm doing the recording, actually, 9/6/22 for early access. Now, what is the context of the game? It is essentially armored warfare, armored combat, East versus West. What if the Cold War went hot? Believe it's summer of 1985 is what was chosen. Now, the crew voices in the game. So many people talk up and down about the crew voices, how great the crew voices are, which I'll put a big feather in my hat for that. Thank you all very much for thinking the crew voice work was well done. The crew voices are very authentic. Why? Because they used actual crewmen. So, and the responses and how the crews react to situations gives a more authentic feel. You could tell from just my voice alone. It'll go from heat up to I'm trying to scream my lungs out, which actually it was when I did the recording, I was screaming into my microphone. But because of the noise of the tank and things of that nature, it really doesn't sound like I'm as loud as I really was when I was yelling. The graphics are actually rather good. I like how the terrain looks. The trees actually do move, like especially if you smack into them. I was actually playing earlier tonight, and I actually figured out where a tank was going to go up over a hill because it smacked into a tree. As you can see, the grass moves. The color palettes they used looks really good for the confines and context of the game. So I have nothing wrong there when it comes to the graphics itself. There's probably little improvements but they can do, but it's mostly, in my opinion, going to be based on optimization more than the color palettes and that. Basically fine tweak stuff. The vehicle is currently in game. If I was to do an East versus West Cold War era game that was going to be early release, the vehicles that are currently in game are the vehicles I would use. They have stuff like the M113. You do have static anti-tank launchers such as you have the TOW, and you have the AT-4, the Soviet AT-4, folks. I'm not going to say its name because YouTube probably won't appreciate it. You got the M60A1, you got the M1IP, T-72A, BMP-1, T-55A. These are vehicles that were currently in service with Soviet forces at the time, as well as American forces at the time. Now, that being said, they still haven't finished adding all the different vehicles they want to add yet, nor have they got done finishing all the different factions they want to add yet. So, as an early access of this is what we got to play with, I think the vehicle selection is a really good selection. Gives various different play styles, as the Bradley plays different from, the BMP. The Abrams plays different from the T-72. Nothing really plays similar to one another. They all play differently because they're all based around how they would work in the real world. Or at least as close as they can get based on a video game. The current build, the Steam build, and even the current build of the Patreon release, which the Patreon release, by the way, folks, is now inactive. For those of you who didn't know that the Patreon build is no more, the free public demo is also no more. But the current build does have instant action, so you just want to get in there, you want to shoot some tanks, have some fun, you quickly fire up the game, get into a mission, and it's like a quick wham bam thank you ma'am type of mission. Or you have a campaign, which is a series of missions. The missions I noticed for the campaign are a little bit bigger. The forces are a little bit bigger. Stuff of that nature. And actually the campaign is really interesting, as essentially, once again, you can either pick NATO or you can pick Soviet. I decided to go NATO. I've already done a couple missions. And essentially, I think it's a random mission generation. But when you get to the map, it'll, like, for Fulda Gap, there's 3 locations. For Fulda Gap, you'll have 4 different locations, 4 different missions. You pick your mission that you're going to play through. You play through that mission. If you're successful, Soviet forces get weakened in the area. NATO forces, I didn't see a change. But then when you get back to the map and you can do your next mission, it's got 4 brand new missions that you can pick from. So you can choose what mission you want to play for the campaign, but the campaign it looks like it's a random generation type, some type of random roll to it. I'm not 100% sure, as I've not been able to get a full deep dive into the campaign yet. I'm going to say that the game does have a real world feel to it. It's got different types of structures, buildings, etc. The way the trees are laid out, the landmass. The landmass, from what I can tell, like for Fulda Gap, if you look at the topographical map, the military map in-game of the Fulda Gap, and you can compare it to the real world Fulda Gap topographical map. So, I mean, from what I can tell there, that's like 100%. I'm not so sure about the roads and the structures, but the terrain elevations in that looks fairly realistic, if not right on the money. Farmers' fields, fences, roads, which there's dirt roads, there's, you know, smaller paved roads, and then there's like highways, you know, like big major roads. So just a real world feel to the game in itself. The game is very immersive. This has to do with the soundscaping. This has to do with how the tanks react to different scenarios, how they work, stuff of that nature. You know, sometimes you have to drop your lead, which then you have to release the palm switches. You have to laser targets before you can fire. Although sometimes you can get away with not lasing the targets. You have, you know, coaxial machine guns. You do have to deal with anti-tank crews for now, but later there will be infantry, from what I understand, actually in the game. There's also supposedly going to be artillery mechanics. Actually, I think there might already be artillery mechanics. I haven't seen anything to confirm that, though. The way the crews react to the different situations. You know, when you're first starting out your mission and you're engaging the enemy, the crew seems very calm. You can take your time. You can do your things. But then when you start getting shot at or the enemy's really close, then the crew starts yelling. They start reacting to the situation differently, and it adds to the immersion. And honestly, for me, that's when it's like, you know, the cheeks pinch, and I hit a 9.0 on the pucker factor, especially when I got a couple T-72s literally no more than 100 yards away from me. So, yeah, 9.0 on the pucker factor does engage, and I really get into it personally, and I think a lot of people will. One thing I will admit, and this has to do with me being a part of the Discord for a while now and seeing the process of the Patreon build, and the fact that actually the developers do stream and talk about what's going to be coming to Gunner Heat PC. They'll show off the new update, any new updates and stuff like that. And they put that stuff on the YouTube, as well as they communicate with members of the community on the Gunner Heat PC Discord. The developers are very transparent. These are some of the most transparent developers I have ever personally seen. And even still, if I have a question, I can just literally reach out to the development team and ask them a quick question to confirm a suspicion or whatever. Or I can post something in the Discord. The community itself is also rather good. That has to be said too. I haven't really seen anybody create any hassle or problems within the community. Advanced damage models. This game has some of the most advanced damage models I've ever seen. Now, I can't compare to Steel Beast. Now, Steel Beast, when I played it years ago, Gunner Heat PC is more advanced. But like when it comes to Arma, Gunner Heat PC is more advanced than Arma. That being said, Gunner Heat PC is newer. Arma 3, by the way. To put in perspective, the M1 Abrams has blow-off panels. I've covered this in a previous video. Has blow-off panels. And those blow-off panels will actually blow off. And if that door is open, the loader door is open, the crew will end up getting killed or taking damage from the ammo cook-off. I've actually seen photos of people posting stuff like, you know, shells just so happening to go down a gun barrel with the breech block open, and it kills the crew. I've seen that already. So things of that nature. The models are very advanced damage wise. I don't know so much compared to, say, War Thunder. I know War Thunder's got some very advanced damage models too. I do believe the damage models in Gunner Heat PC might be a little bit more advanced than that even. Especially when you consider loading doors, positioning the breech block at the time that the vehicle takes damage, hatches being open, etc. Next thing is the tanks. They look great. They, you know, here's the thing with the tanks when it comes to Gunner Heat PC is the tanks are actual 3D scans of real tanks. People actually went out there and actually, to help with the development, some people went out there and actually got 3D scans of the tanks that are in Gunner Heat PC and sent those 3D scans into the developers. So when it comes to the scale, and once again, they used a lot of official documentation when it comes to the internals of the tanks, etc. It's right on the money. So the tanks just don't look good. They just are good. They are as realistic as you can get without being real. The missions in general terms are very, very sensible. You're either doing reconnaissance, you're attacking a fortified location, you are defending a location, stuff of that nature. Easy controls. With this game being more of a simulator, the controls are actually rather easy to pick up. That's one thing I will give this over Steel Beast. Now, that being said, there's a lot of stuff that you can do in Steel Beast, such as calling artillery strikes on different locations, stuff of that nature that you can't do yet in Gunner Heat PC. I don't know if that stuff's going to be added later. But in general terms, you got a simulator with almost arcade-like controls, not completely as easy as an arcade, but very similar. And essentially what that does is that makes a more user-friendly experience, and that's why I call this game at times, when I talk about Gunner Heat PC, I call it a sim light. It's a simulator, but there's features to the game to make it more user-friendly, to make it lighter per se than a typical simulator. The ammo cook-off mechanics are absolutely awesome. I've seen it already where the ammo just went off like, you know, a Zippo lighter. But I've also seen it where the ammo would take time to cook off. And there's various different types of blowouts I've seen as well. Everything from, you know, the hatches fly open, and if the breech block is open, flames will shoot out those areas, essentially any area that it can, to turrets blowing off. So it varies on, you know, it varies when it comes to the ammo cook-off, and honestly, it's spot on. In my experience, it's spot on. Understand I was really a 19 kilo. No grind. Folks, no grind. Can anybody say that anymore about games? There's, right now as it stands, there's absolutely no grind in the game. I definitely appreciate that. That's good stuff. There is an after-action report mode where you can actually go through and you can actually see your shots as well as other shots throughout the units. And you can actually see the damage models, the interior models. There's a little bit of a clip of that here in my review for Gunner Heat PC. So I think the after action report mode is actually rather good when you want to use it and you get curious of how did that guy kill me. You can go to the after action report mode and find out. Lots of advanced mechanics. I've talked about that. Everything from the breech blocks being open, loss of gunnery sights. You can even if you get hit and you lose power and you go to traverse, your traverse will slow down and you'll hear the crewman cranking. And that's the mechanical crank system. So that's very cool. As well as you can actually turn your stabilizers on and off if you want to. Things of that nature. Also, the thermal vision. Thermal vision works day and night. Right on the money. To me, that's a more advanced mechanic. Maybe it's not, but it is kind of an important feature in my opinion. Discarding sabos. Very cool. You don't get that in Armored Warfare. I don't know if you get that in War Thunder. I do believe you get that in Steel Beast now. I do believe, actually, I'm not 100% sure. I think you may get that in Arma 3, but I think that's only on some of the modded vehicles. I don't think the vanilla Arma 3 vehicles do it. So it's kind of a mixed grab bag on what games do it. But I do have to say that it's really cool to see the discarding sabos. And you'll see that as I'm shooting sabo rounds, or as friendlies are shooting sabo rounds. You'll see the tracer from the round continue to go, and you'll see these parts that fly off the round. And those are, once again, they're 100% accurate, mostly because they used official documentation to find this stuff out. Finally, the thing that I like of my likes is the game is unbalanced. For a lot of games, for me, I don't like it when it's unbalanced, but because of what this is, I'm actually glad that the game is unbalanced. The Soviet vehicles, in general terms, are not as user-friendly and not as good quality-wise as the American vehicles. But that being said, there's certain things, certain aspects that the Soviet vehicles have over the NATO vehicles, especially when it comes to realm of armor. The other thing that they've kind of done, and I'm not sure if they did this on purpose, this would be a more realistic thing, is NATO forces, when you're playing as NATO forces, not all the time, but most of the time, you are outnumbered against the Soviet forces. And vice versa. If you're playing as Soviet forces, you tend to outnumber the NATO forces. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. If the Cold War went hot, the Soviet Union, in general terms, in Fulda Gap, actually did outnumber NATO forces. Now, there's caveats to that. I'm not going to get into it here, mostly because it's got nothing to do with the review itself, but it is kind of a cool feature. Now, that being said, when it comes to the combat effectiveness of the Soviet vehicles versus the NATO vehicles are definitely more combat effective than the Soviet stuff. But that's neither here nor there. That's just, I'm pointing that out for the fact that, yeah, there's aspects of this game that is not balanced, and it's not meant to be because it's meant to be real world. Now, a couple things I want to point out that I would like to see improved, or that I just dislike in general. Most of it is I just want to see it improved. Probably actually all of it. First thing I want to see improved is I want to see the optimization improved. I know what they're trying to do is really hard, because essentially they're trying to give you 4 kilometers of vision range. You know, try to render in 4 kilometers and not completely kill your FPS. And in general regards to that, they actually do a fairly good job. I would just like to see the optimization improved, and I think it will over time. Additional crew voices are definitely a need. One thing I really don't like about playing the East German vehicles, the Soviet vehicles right now, is that they have no crew voices. Same thing with the Bradley. It's like, yeah, the Bradley's really cool to play with, but there's no crew voices. And that kind of kills me. That's fine. I know that's something they're going to work on in the future. I'm not scorning them for it. I'm just bringing it up here that not everything that you can play has crew voices as of right now. That will change, I know, in the future. AI definitely needs improved.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
The AI in the game can go absolutely potato at times. Like, true story. It does happen. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Programming AI can be really difficult, and sometimes it can be really buggy. Not scorning them, once again, just one of those things that I hope to see it improved. I'm sure it will be improved. Things of that nature. The game itself can have very slow load times at times. So if you're, if that can be kind of a nuisance, like you kind of sitting there waiting for your PC to load, the skeleton sitting behind the PC meme type deal. That's just, once again, that's going to be the nature of the beast. It's got a lot of script to load. So I'm sure that can get improved on over time. I'm not sure if that's something that can really get fixed. Next thing I would like to see done and improved on is there is no tree or structure models, damage models yet. Like if you run into, say, a picket fence and smash into it, it's going to stop you. You're not going to run through the picket fence. You're not going to shoot holes into buildings. You're not going to knock trees over. That's something I would like to see improved upon. Well, that's something I just want to see in general right now. That just doesn't exist. That might be a difficult thing to add. That's going to have to be a wait and see type of deal. And I know a lot of people have asked for it. And honestly, when it comes to the pecking order of stuff that I would want developed in the game, this is kind of on the lower end of the totem pole. Damage mechanics can get a little weird at times. I've had instances where I've seen the whole one side of my screen go red by shooting a T-72, and that T-72 turn around and shoot me back. So I'm not sure what that is. It's some kind of little glitch, or maybe it's just, maybe the damage I did to that T-72 wasn't impressive as it looked on my screen. I'm not 100% sure. I've had instances where I've shot 4 heat rounds into an M113 and not destroy it. 100 millimeter heat rounds from like the T55. That should definitely just shred the M113 100%. So I'm not sure what that is there. The next thing, I know this is something they're going to do later, but this is kind of a warning that, hey, there's no multiplayer yet in this game. And that being said, going by what has been said in the past from the developers, there is plans for a online co-op, but there is no plans currently for an online PvP. So that has to be said as well. Either ways, Gunner Heat PC, it's $30 on Steam. Now right now, it's a little bit cheaper. It's $26.99 right now for the introductory price, but that's only going to be running for the introduction week of Gunner Heat PC on Steam. All in all, that being said, do I recommend this game? Hell yeah. This game's a lot of fun, actually. I mean, it's honestly, it's a breath of fresh air to play a more realistic tank game without actually playing a full bore simulator like Steel Beast or even Arma 3 for that matters. So there you go, folks. That's my opinion about Gunner Heat PC. Hopefully you all enjoyed the review. I know it's a long review, but I really wanted to give a really good deep dive into Gunner Heat PC and try to give every bit of information that I could so you knew what you were going to be getting. Anyway, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, please share it around and hit that like button, stuff of that nature, because YouTubers like that type of stuff. Anyway, folks, once again, thank you very much, and have yourself a wonderful day.